There's a problem with the Starlancer MAX that no one really talks about, and once you see it, trusting this ship becomes a decision. The Starlancer MAX, a long-range hauler built to stay out when other ships turn back. Big cargo, big living space, and a layout that suggests this ship is meant to keep working after plans change. That's the pitch. But once I stopped looking at the specs and started looking at the choices MISC made, something felt off. Not a deal breaker, just enough little things to make me pause. Why split the cargo instead of stacking it? Why prioritize movement through the ship over convenience? Why outfit a long-haul freighter with components that don't like taking damage? None of that feels accidental. It feels intentional. The question is whether those intentions hold up once this ship is fully loaded, committed, and far enough out that turning around stops being an option. This isn't a walkthrough, it's an investigation. Hi, I'm Dusty Star. Today we're taking a close, honest look at the MISC Starlancer MAX. Not just what it can do, but what it assumes. So we're doing this the factory service manual way. We'll tear her down, rebuild her with intent, and then take her somewhere those assumptions get tested. And by the end of it, we'll see if the Starlancer MAX earns a spot in my hangar or not. Here's the Starlancer MAX, a long-range medium freighter built for crews who plan to live in the black. Everything about this ship, the size, the layout, the living space, points towards endurance, not convenience. And that's gonna matter later. The first access point is the entry elevator. This is the primary crew ingress when the ship is grounded. It's fast, direct, and separated from the cargo flow. Next is the docking port. Despite the name, most crews don't use this for docking. They use it for EVA. It drops you straight onto the lower deck. Cargo bay, suit lockers, weapon racks, and right here is a detail that matters more than it looks. There's a ladder between decks. If the lift goes offline, you're not trapped on one level. And when things get busy, this is the fastest vertical movement on the ship. That detail matters when power and time aren't guaranteed. These side cargo bays are where the Starlancer's intent becomes obvious. This is where the work happens. They're built for deliberate fast unloading, 128 SCU cargo grid. There's a right way to load this grid, and during the hauling test, I'll show you exactly why that matters. And finally, the rear ramp. This is the heavy access point, vehicles, bulk cargo, and fast exits. It's the most flexible access point on the ship. Later in Operation Split Horizon, this ramp will show its real purpose. Next up, the hard points. The Starlancer MAX carries size 4 weapons on gimbals. The stock loadout here is M6A laser cannons. These are sustained fire weapons with good reach and predictable behavior. They're not here to chase fighters, but they'll discourage anything careless enough to stay in front of the ship. Next are the missile racks, belly-mounted and top-mounted racks working together. The stock configuration uses Thunderbolt 3 electromagnetic missiles. These aren't panic weapons, they're area denial tools. Used deliberately, they force movement. Used recklessly, they just announce where you are. Finally, the remote turrets, one forward, one aft. Each mounts dual size 4 laser repeaters. These aren't about winning a fight, they're about coverage. The forward turret supports the pilot. The rear turret exists for one reason, to make chasing this ship uncomfortable. Everything here is designed to buy space, buy time, and let the ship keep moving. And in Operation Split Horizon, we'll find out how long enough really is. This is the Starlancer MAX's base configuration, and these are the components it leaves the factory with. This is the baseline, everything else gets judged against. Each card breaks a component down into simple trade-offs, and each row is a stat. More pips means more of that behavior. Those pips are calculated by comparing components of the same type and size, so a size 2 power plant is only being measured against other size 2 power plants. It's always apples to apples. There's no best card here. Your job is deciding which stats matter for the job you're doing. Everything below this line is optional. Everything above it is what MISC chose. So before we change anything, let's look at the first place those choices show up. Let's start with the power plants. LuxCore and Genoa both provide strong output, but look at the bottom row, component hit points. The LuxCore trades survivability for other performance characteristics. The Genoa is built to take heavy damage and keep running. Both power plants produce high emissions. But for deep space hauling, staying online matters more than peak output. So for this build, we're going Genoa. Next is shields. Stronghold versus Parapet. Same industrial family, Parapet offers better regen and tougher hardware. But industrial isn't automatically the right answer. This is where civilian surprises people. The Nargun offers a larger shield pool and stronger regen with lower EM output. So for this build, the industrial option steps aside. We're going Nargun. Now coolers. Snowpack keeps the same cooling output, but it's a different philosophy. Industrial grade built to absorb damage. The trade-off is visible in the pips. It's tougher but louder. For this ship, I'll take the cooler that survives a bad day. The stock quantum drive is Sparkfire. It's slow, has limited range, high emissions, and low component durability. If you're moving valuable cargo through uncertain space, this isn't the drive you want to rely on. Huracan is tempting. High speed, long range, but the cooldown tells another story. This drive punishes you when plans change, so we pivot to the civilian pick. Chimera is the balanced answer. More predictable recovery, less volatility between jumps. Huracan wins the race, Chimera wins the trip. In Operation Split Horizon, the plan changes, and that second jump is the one that matters. For the hauling test, I picked something this ship should handle without drama. Direct medium cargo, Port Tressler to MIC L1. 97 SCU, mostly 8 SCU boxes. This is exactly the kind of load the Starlancer was designed around. If it struggles here, that tells us something. Even parking it in the hangar, this ship rewards thinking ahead. You're deciding how you expect cargo to move before it ever comes up the lift. Down and shut down. Now the work starts. First thing I do is drop the side bays. This ship doesn't want you improvising with cargo. It wants decisions made up front. I open the rear ramp because that's where the Atlas lives. You see, there's no remote tractor beam here. That means you're moving mass the old-fashioned way. I could load these in the rear cargo bay, but I'm loading the side bays on purpose. I want to know how usable they actually are when you're doing real work. 12 8 SCU crates and one small box. This should be easy. I grab a box and head back to the ship. I start on the starboard side. These grids look simple, but you need to load from back to front. If you don't, you'll block yourself. With small boxes you can cheat, but with these 8s, you don't. That first placement decides how the rest of this goes. Once you respect the order, the ship stops fighting you. Every box after this is just work. Same process on the port side. Same constraint, same result. The 1 SCU box goes last, and this is where the grid flexibility actually helps. What surprised me wasn't the speed, it was that I never had to stop and rethink anything. The ship never asked me to improvise. With the load secured, it's a straight run to MIC L1. This is a surprisingly easy ship to work in. Big dashboard, clear sight lines. There's nothing in front of you competing for attention. When you need an MFD, you just glance down. That's why I run Toby. Link below. Code DustyStar gets you a discount. Same approach as pickup. Line the ramp and elevator up once. Because if you park it the same way every time, the work stays predictable. And predictable is how you stop losing time to little mistakes. This ship is easy to work with. Not because it's fast, but because it stays organized. 4 separate cargo grids means you can stack contracts without mixing destinations. You could run multiple jobs at once and never touch the wrong crate. That's not flashy, but that's exactly what smart hauling looks like. Contract complete. And from a hauling perspective, this is where the Starlancer earns its keep. Up to this point, everything we've done still assumes the run will go as expected. Planned loading, known routes, and Stanton space. Operation Split Horizon is where those assumptions stop being theoretical. I thought this one was going to be easy. It never is. I asked Wrecker if I could ride along on a Starlancer run, because I wanted to see how this ship handled long-distance hauling. I figured it would be a normal delivery, something I could observe without getting in the way. It didn't take long to realize I really wasn't meant to be part of this mission. When I walked into the hangar, the Roughnecks were already deep into prep, and it was obvious this wasn't routine. No one was joking around on Discord. Everyone was focused, moving with purpose, treating every step like it mattered. The Starlancer MAX sat cold in the bay while Argo Atlas units moved around it. Each container was guided in by hand and locked down carefully, then inspected again by someone inside the cargo bay to make sure nothing was missing. These weren't normal crates. This was hardware they'd spent months collecting. The kind of parts you don't replace if something goes wrong. Military and stealth components, rare and powerful ship weapons. There was enough value in that hangar to end a lot of friendships. As I moved closer to the ship, I heard someone behind me ask quietly, "Does Tonk know?" No one answered right away. Something about that didn't sit right. I overheard that each box was assigned to one of 2 drop locations, and staged deliberately because it needed to come out fast. Word around the hangar was Tonk knew something about the sale. He used to fly with the Roughnecks before things fell apart, and he still believed those components belonged to him. I watched the last container slide into place. That's when it really set in. If anything went wrong on this run, months of work would disappear with it. There wasn't going to be a second chance. When the ramp finally closed, the sound echoed through the hangar in a way that made everything feel very final. I realized I hadn't come along to observe a Starlancer MAX in action. I stepped into the middle of an operation that couldn't afford a single mistake. Once we were aboard, the ship felt different. Not tense, just prepared. The galley was busy in a quiet way. Someone loading food and drinks into the fridge, another roughneck locking rifles into the weapons rack. No rushing, just people getting ready for a job they took seriously. That's when Wrecker called everyone together. I stayed back, close enough to hear without feeling like I was part of the meeting. He reminded them that this was payday, that the components aboard represented months of work, favors, and risk. Nothing in those cargo holds had come easy. Then he laid out the run. 2 drops, 1 in pyro, 1 in Nix. Same expectation. Get in, unload, and leave without drawing attention. They weren't going alone. Carlot from the privateers would be flying escort. His job was to get ahead of the Starlancer, scan the area, and see who else might already be waiting when the ship arrived. That's when someone asked, half joking and half serious, why weren't they taking the Perseus? The room didn't react, but the question landed hard. Everyone there knew what the Perseus meant. Firepower, presence, a ship Tonk knew too well. The ship of choice already said enough. This wasn't a run where you want to be predictable. It finally clicked for me why the Starlancer MAX was here instead. They weren't planning on making this run twice. One trip, full grid, cargo already split by destination. And just as important, it wasn't the silhouette anyone would be scanning for. The crew started talking about the plan, confirming details. We need our next destination on the pyro side aligned quickly. Time was the risk. As we approached the gate, chatter picked up over Discord. Someone asked if Tonk had been seen around Nix lately. In the middle of a run like this, that kind of question didn't come from nowhere. And no one answered. Carlot entered the jump tunnel first. He'd go through ahead of us, engage any pirates waiting on the other side to give us a window to slip through clean. A moment later, his voice came back over Discord. He was halfway through. That was our cue. The gateway opened and the Starlancer moved forward. Once we crossed the threshold, the decision was made. No turning back. We were almost through the tunnel when Carlot's voice cut across the comms. He had company. The timing couldn't have been worse. As we approached the exit, the stars sharpened as pyro came into view, and everyone on board knew what that meant. Whatever was waiting on the other side, we were about to drop right into it. Wrecker was already working the nav, plotting the next jump before we even finished exiting. The plan was simple: appear, align, and get out. Then the radar lit up, multiple contacts, active scans across the hull almost immediately. Whoever was out there knew exactly what they were looking for, and they weren't being subtle about it. Wrecker pushed the engines, pulling us off the gate, creating space, just trying to stay alive long enough. Missile warnings followed. I didn't see the impacts, I just felt the ship react. It was Tonk, and he hadn't come alone. Carlot was quiet on the comms. When the drive finished spooling, Wrecker didn't wait. The stars stretched, and just like that, we were gone. The mood in the ship got heavy once we were in quantum towards Pyro 4. Wrecker was angry. You could hear it in his voice. There was no way Tonk knew the day, the timing, or the direction by chance. This wasn't coincidence. Someone on this run was leaking information to him. No one spoke after that. I wasn't thinking about who did it. I was thinking about what I'd missed. I felt it before I saw it. A shift behind me. Someone moving where no one had been moving before. One of the turret gunners had stepped out of his seat. I didn't turn around. I knew it wasn't me, but that didn't make me feel any better. So what's the problem with the Starlancer MAX? The stock configuration assumes planning, it assumes a full crew, and it assumes nothing goes sideways. After rebuilding it, loading it properly, and running it outside a controlled environment, here's my answer. If you're willing to plan early and commit to your decisions, the Starlancer MAX will take you farther than most ships in its class. But if you expect it to save you after things start going wrong, it won't. For me, Rebuilt, understood, and respected, it earns a spot in my hangar. Stock and treated casually, it doesn't. Big thank you to the Thrusters and Dust crew and the Patreon supporters who make these videos possible. The factory service manuals, posters, and ship component trading cards are free. Links are in the description. Want another teardown? Watch this video next.